And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 71. You know, I rode bus number 71 in high school, and so it's always had sort of a vehicular meaning to it, and this is another very meaningful episode to me here. We have an outstanding Aerostar today. I'm doing my Mexican residency of Year of the Aerostar, and I've sort of toyed at, there's a lot of jankiness down there with the Aerostars, a lot of older Aerostars, a lot of Aerostars in, you know, sort of very janky condition. We've seen 2 free Aerostars already. However, there are also some absolute, you know, I'm not going to say mint condition, but just extremely, I don't want to even say rare, just standout, standalone Aerostars. So you have sort of both sides of the spectrum, things that would be complete projects and sort of oddballs, and then you have things that are just like really, you know, amazing specs and things that are truly outstanding Aerostars that anyone would be fortunate to have in a collection of Aerostars or in a collection of any sort of vehicle for that matter whatsoever. You'll notice today I do not have my Ford hat on. I have a Janky California Angels hat on, and if you like things like this, they will be coming soon to jankypainting.com. So quick plug there. All right, let's get into it. Without further ado, here we have a 1989 Ford Aerostar Estándar, listed for 45,000 Mexican pesos, and I have done the math for you on that. That is only $2,426, and when you see what we're working with here, you will realize that is an absolute steal. Listed in Tlaquepaque, Tlaquepaque, 2 K's in there, Q-U-E, that word means what, I believe. Tlaquepaque, I'm sure that's not the right way to say it, I apologize. Jalisco, Mexico. All right, so driven 111,111 kilometers. I somehow doubt that is the actual mileage. It sounds like a finger mashing figure. Manual transmission, of course, if you have watched this program in the last couple of episodes, we were told, and Janky do thank you very much, and I apologize again, I have not looked up your name. I forgot it's either Daniel or David. I believe it was Daniel. Estándar, they were nice enough to comment that Estándar means manual transmission in Spanish. So I am learning Spanish while I do this. So it has a manual transmission in this beautiful, beautiful 1989 Aerostar, and we'll get into that in just a second, I promise. Exterior color beige, interior color beige. Beige on beige, I love that combination. Boy, I'm so flustered here because there's just so much to talk about. I want to get through my little you know, details here, but I have to break immediately and say that this is like a 2-tone beige color, you know, just barely though, and it's almost if the you know, you see the top, it's an optical illusion. The top and the bottom here almost look like 2 separate golds from each other. And in the middle, we have this lighter gold with a beautiful, beautiful red pinstripe here. Now, my 1986 Aerostar is all brown, but it has 1 separate quarter panel in which the top and the bottom are brown. And the middle is very similar, this gold with a little red pinstripe here. It looks like maybe a tritone pinstripe. I just think such a subtle, beautiful combination. I love the very slight 2-tone as opposed to the, you know, high contrast 2-tone, because it's a little bit, you know, it's got some class to it. And then the red pinstripe just breaks up, because you know what it is a mountain of beige here, but the red pinstripe just breaks it up perfectly, goes with the goldish, you know, hues very, very nicely. Just outstanding color combination. But I digress. Okay, fuel type, petrol. I like that. I like, you know, that's what the Brits say. Engine size, 0.3 liter. Now we've gone from -1 liter. Now we're at 0.3. So at least we're in positive integers here. Now what's funny about this is that as you hear perhaps the dogs go crazy down there, this is the 3-liter engine. So somehow it just, maybe the decimal point's in the wrong place. Who knows? Horsepower, 150 horsepower. Now I don't usually see that listed in about this vehicle. That's an interesting figure to actually put the horsepower up there. You usually don't see that in marketplace or Craigslist ads. So I just thought that was interesting, and that got me thinking, and we'll get into, you know, what I did with that figure. And that checks out. I believe the 3-liter engine made about 150 horsepower. One owner. This is maybe a one owner 1989 Ford Aerostar manual transmission, just absolutely stunning. So let's butcher some Spanish, read the description. Now it is mostly all in caps, which I love, and I think is actually quite appropriate for this post, because when I saw this, I you know, my brain was thinking all in caps. Vendo, I believe that's for sale. Aerostar. Now, interestingly, Aerostar is the only thing that's not capitalized. You know, maybe that's my only gripe with this post. 1989 Estandar Econim. It's so funny. This is the same word, but you know, you ever hear like someone who's, I put myself in their shoes. They're speaking English as a second language, and they'll put a weird emphasis on a syllable, like the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. You know, as they say, and it's just economica. There you go, economica. But I want to say economy. So, but then when you say economy, when you put the emphasis on the C, suddenly the rest of the word is kind of screwed up or behind. So it's, you know, just a funny little language thing. You know, this, as I've said many times, Year of the Aerostar is about Aerostars, but it's also about language, and it's about marketplace culture and the way things are written. So I think that's appropriate here. Estandar Económica de Gasolina Motor 3.0. Notice how I just say the numbers, and I was realizing I know most of the Spanish numbers 1 through 10, but I don't know how to say 0. So I could say tres punct. Punct is German for point, so now I'm into another language altogether. We'll just go with the numbers in English, okay? 3.0 liter, funcionado a la perfección. I don't know why I wave my hands, maybe because it's in all caps, but I just imagine myself like a Spanish game show host, you know? Para viajar para la familia o para trabajar puede venir a checarla más información al, and then a bunch of numbers, 3318956018. So if you want to call them. Now I understand a lot of this, you know, a very economical gasoline motor, funcionado a la perfección, functioning perfectly. For viajar, I don't know what that is. Para, I think, is or maybe. La familia or familia. Oh no, para is for. Para viajar, for viajar. I don't know what that is. Para la familia, for the family. Or para trabajar, for a working van. Although I gotta say right now, please don't turn this into a working van. It's too nice. Puede venir. What's venir? A la checarla más información. For more information, call this number. Se va con llantes nuevas y rines. Comes with, or I don't know, something for nuevas. Maybe it has new rims or something on it. Let's see the translation and see how poorly I understand this language. Selling. Okay, got that right. Aerostar, 1989, economic standard gasoline 3.0 liter engine, working perfectly for traveling. Okay, viajar, of course, yeah. For family or for work. Can come check it out. More information. New tires and rims. Okay, so not so bad, you know. You know, all Aerostars speak the same language, of course, as we know. And Aerostar is a uniting force in the world, and it can bring people together, I truly believe. So let's get into the pictures. Now, they do say new tires and rims, and that was one of the first things I noticed, was that it does have, it looks like they're hubcaps, but I gotta say, they fit this model very, very well. And it does look like some fresh rubber on there. I don't know what these are. They seem vaguely familiar. I'm trying to place where I've seen these. They almost look like a little Nissan maybe, with these little dimples in them, like, you know, like a 90s, 2000s Nissan Quest. I could see these being on. I don't think that's what it is. Now maybe they're just standard aftermarket, but they seem to fit the Aerostar. You know, if you had a blue oval in here, I could totally believe these were a, you know, a period accurate OEM hubcap, although I do not believe they are. We see some pictures of the frame. Looks like in very, very nice condition. No real rust to speak of. Maybe a little bit of surface rust, but you know, 89. It's a, you know, let's see, 99, 2009. I have to count in my head. Apologize for that. 99, 2009. I'm like a third grader. 2019. So a 34-year-old vehicle. Now, boom. Okay, so this is. I was just talking about this when we did our last manual Aerostar. Obviously, there's a difference here. Now, there were two Mazda, they were Mazda transmissions, the manual transmissions, and they must have switched right at 89, probably when the 3-liter became standard and the 2.3 and the 2.8 went out the door. This is a different shift lever. I even think the boot may be different, but I'm not sure about that. But the lever is thicker and it's more linear. So the previous one, the one that I have in my 86, has a little hitch in it right here, which is kind of cool. I like the little hitch, but I really like this one. And the other one is more of a square knob, and the numbers are embossed into like sort of the rubber shift knob, whereas this, they're sort of printed on like a little cylinder that sits in the round shift knob ball. So those are the subtle differences. Obviously right here we can see behind there your lovely graphic equalizer. Now it is written in English, but I don't think that necessarily means it couldn't have been natively sold. I'm trying to find out if Aerostars were natively sold. Now this is kind of a funny thing. You have your cigarette smoker icon. This whole little tray will lift out and you have your 12 volt or cigarette lighter here. But look at the size of this ashtray. I mean, you could chief down darts, as the Canadians like to say, to throw another country in there. And boy, you could probably, ash in there for weeks or months at a time without having to clean it out. So the Aerostar, was friendly to smokers. We do not advocate smoking here in Janky AF, just a terrible habit. Okay, engine bay. Look at this. So clean. There's you can see your 3.0 block. I do recognize that from my 93. And just, I don't know if they just cleaned this or what, but like, even your air box doesn't look really dusty. Everything looks super, super clean under here. At least like some of the wiring looks maybe like more recent and pretty well done. It's not just sprayed all over the place. It seems like it's pretty neatly done in there. Just tremendous. Okay, we're going to jump around a little bit, the order of these. Okay, the interior, again, stunning, and it looks like a red pinstripe at first, and you see a lot of these sort of tan seats with red piping, but the closer I look at it, it almost looks to be like a bronze orange piping, which, maybe it's just red and it's a little sun faded or something like that. We even have your leather inserts that go all the way down here, very, very nicely trimmed out. Again, for like a economy minivan that was also a cargo van, they really put some nice little trim pieces in here to give it sort of like a little bit of a luxury feel. I also love how the back of the seats have this sort of like shag carpet material on them. Really, really nice. Again, look at this. I mean, in this light, you really see does look like an orangish copper piping as opposed to a red piping, and that's just astounding. I've never seen anything like that, and it makes me want to go back and look at the pinstripe to see if maybe that's actually even like an orangish copper too, excuse me. So just really, really stunning Aerostar. I talked about this in a recent episode, and the last Aerostar was like really janked up. This one's very, very nice. But you can see even this was like a factory like panel cap here. Like the molding and the stereo just did not ever from factory, I think, fit very well in there. And that's, that's just the honesty of the Aerostar. It does have these sort of kind of nice appointments, but that's what I love. It was built to a cost. Like all these cars were built to a cost. And I think like the Aerostar obviously is the shining example or the pinnacle, but I really think that, I was watching, this is an aside here, but I was watching Doug DeMuro on the Smoking Tire podcast, and congratulations to him. But they were talking about, are there any collectible Korean cars? What Hyundais have reached collectible status? And he was saying, any mass-produced car just kind of by definition can't be an enthusiast car. And I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth. I don't think that's exactly what they meant, but they just meant that, unless it was like a weird standout model that was still mass produced, which you could argue the Aerostar is kind of a weird standout model, that's very, very hard. It's very, very difficult for a mass produced, utility or just like appliance, quote unquote, vehicle to be a collector item. But I strongly disagree, because I think there's so many mass produced cars that over time just, did things that no other car since then has really done, and it's in all these little details. And I think not that a radio stereo box not fitting into your dashboard is like necessarily something that's going to make people want to collect the car. But I think that as we look back on a lot of these cars, you know, with the graphic equalizer and the beautiful little tape deck with even your balance left and right is on its own little slider here, things like that should make these cars collectible, because the more you dig into them and the more you find about them, the more little details like this, you know, should make these enthusiast cars. Because if we're car enthusiasts, then in my opinion, we should be enthusiastic about, you know, every part of the vehicle, and try to find something like this today, you know, in your car with 12 screens on it. So, anyways, neither here nor there, a digression. Again, you're great. You know, a little bit of staining on the carpet here, as one of our lights just went out in the studio. It's janky AF. A little bit of staining on the carpet, nothing too bad. You still have both of your bench seats in here, which I absolutely love. You're getting the entire, you know, as it came, not missing any seats. A little bit of sun fade on the hood here, and the light just came back on. Janky do thanky. But, you know, I would just let the patina ride. Like, yes, you could get this repainted, but I think it's in such a nice original condition that you just live with this small little defects. Again, your like chrome little insert on your bumper here, a little bit of staining there. But even very, very minimal cracking on these bumpers, which is an accomplishment unto itself. Again, you know, 89, man, this is such a cool year because you still have manual transmissions, but you've gone up to the 3-liter engine. You still have the original, you know, pre-facelift interior, but you have the newer engine with the newer transmission. You have the newer style grille, but the Ford logo is in the center instead of up at the top here. So just a real sort of hybrid of, you know, I'm not going to say generations, but of, you know, in the progression of the Aerostar, you're sort of right in the middle here. And for so many reasons, this is just a very, very unique Ford Aerostar that we're looking at. Another shot of the engine bay, again, a little surface rust down here, but look at how clean that block is in your airbox. Boy, it is really, really clean down there. So obviously well taken care of. Again, these seats, I mean, that's copper. That's not red. I mean, I'm almost astounded. I've never seen an interior trimmed out like that. Now, maybe this was like a, you know, an 89 thing. You don't see a lot of 89s, and the Aerostar color scheme, although a lot of the colors you could say were sort of run-of-the-mill colors, there weren't a lot of like really bold, vibrant colors, but the blues and the reds and the browns and the tans especially, there was quite a lot of variation over the years. These were offered in a lot of different colors and a lot of slight variation of different colors. So maybe in 89, this, you know, sort of copper piping was just something that was offered. Now, my favorite color is orange. So boy, this one is like really got me going because, you know, I have no means to go down to Mexico and buy an Aerostar right now. But if you're some, you know, I had someone tell me the other day, like, you need like a rich benefactor to like just buy you these Aerostars. So if you're out there, you know, fellow Aerostar enthusiast who happens to be independently wealthy and you want to, you know, become friends, and, you know, I can come paint your house or do something. And if you want to somehow realize, you know, manifest this Aerostar coming to upstate New York, you know, I'm all ears. A little bit of staining on the seat. I see a little bit of rip in this one. But, you know, that can all be forgiven. I mean, it's in original condition. I just think it's, you know, like they say in the description, these vans were used for so many different things. And whether you're hauling around people or hauling around cargo, you know, for a humdrum vehicle that nobody thought about in its day that it would ever be a collectible, I think it's in really, really outstanding condition. The other thing I didn't really mention is it has like a sort of a molding strip here too. I love sort of a molding strip. You know, you look at a C5 Corvette, and if you're like a Corvette enthusiast, that little molding strip that goes right in sort of like the little side, it's not an air intake, but the little scallop in the side of the door there, that molding strip totally changes the look of that C5 Corvette. I myself, I think I lean on the side of having them, and when you see them without them, it almost looks a little bare to me. But neither here nor there. This Aerostar does have a beautiful little side molding strip, runs down the entire side of the vehicle. My Fiat X19 actually has a molding strip too, and I think it's just a really nice accent piece. It really just adds that little air of la-ti-da or whatever, but I like that it's here. I like that it's present. It again showcases the many horizontal indentations and grooves and body lines in the Aerostar, and it just adds yet another one here, and again perfectly accents the big swooping arc that we have with the red pinstripe that breaks up the two-tone color scheme. So really, really fantastic there. I guess we've gotten back to the beginning here, so we'll take another tour through the photos. Again, like I've said, the more modern shift lever with the pre-facelift interior, the 3.0 engine, with this interior that I've never seen before. I mean, the colors are just perfect. The condition is excellent. We don't know what the actual miles are. Maybe it is 111, maybe it just happens to be at that exact kilometer spot right now. So the thing I was going to bring up, which I have not brought up until now, was with the 150 horsepower figure, I got distracted. One of the reasons I love manual transmission Aerostars is because I often compare them to sports cars. Now, this is not a very long vehicle. Obviously, you can see that the both ends of the vehicle are pretty close to where your tires are. It's a 119-inch wheelbase, so you got to figure it's not much longer than that. And it has a manual transmission, rear-wheel drive. It's a 6-cylinder, making 150 horsepower. So I went ahead and did a little math, okay? Bear with me. So they claim, this is just Google quick, research, that 1989 Aerostar 4.0 is 3,342 pounds. And that is presumably maybe the extended version too, maybe even the all-wheel drive version. Because most 4.0s were in all-wheel, 4.0s were standard in all-wheel drive models. They were optionable in rear-wheel drive models. You see very, very few. I've done one. I did a red one that was a standard length 4.0 optioned Aerostar. So they're out there. Anyways, just with the engine alone, you got to figure the 4.0 weighs a little bit more than the 3.0, unless it has like an aluminum block, but I don't think it does. So this says 3,342 pounds. Okay, let's be a little generous and say this 1989, everything was probably a little bit lighter back then. Let's say this weighs 3,200 pounds, okay, with 150 horsepower. Now, I went and looked up, just for comparison's sake, the weight of a Mazda Miata, 91 Mazda Miata, 2,182 pounds. And that, with the 1.6 liter, which I've heard is actually preferable by some people, as opposed to the 1.8, I think, has 115 horsepower, okay? So, I got my little math sheet in front of me. 3,200 pounds, we're calling this the weight of this Aerostar, divided by 150 horsepower is 21.33 pounds per horsepower. This is a figure that some people do. It's actually a great figure. I think it's underutilized. People talk about how much power the car has, how fast is a 0 to 60, blah, blah, blah. But I rarely hear the horsepower to weight ratio get talked about. And I think that's really, really important, because it's not just how much power a car has, or even if it has a lot of power and weighs a lot, and you can still go faster than a light car that doesn't have less power, but you're going to feel the weight of that vehicle as you're driving it. Like, lighter vehicles just have different driving dynamics, and I think that's really, really important to talk about. So 21.33 pounds per horsepower. The Mazda Miata, 2,182 pounds, 115 horsepower, is 18.97 pounds per horsepower. So not that far off, just about 2 pounds per horsepower off of the power to weight ratio of a Mazda Miata. And in both vehicles, you're getting rear-wheel drive, manual transmission. Now, in the Ford Aerostar, you can carry 7 people. So that certainly is a difference between those two vehicles. So I maintain that the Aerostar is like sort of a secret sports car if purchased in the right specification. So just a fun comparative analysis between those two vehicles. The Miata maybe gets a little better miles per gallon, but again, you can fit 7 people or lumber in your Aerostar, where you can't really do that in Miata. So I think it's a very, very fun comparison test. Also, good luck finding an early 90s NA Miata for the price of, you know, $2,426. You know, this is going to be probably twice as cheap as a comparable Miata, especially in this good condition. You know, Miatas are still cheap, but, you know, $6-7 grand now for like a decent little first generation NA Miata. So this is the fun we like to have here on Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar. There was one more thing about the Miata that I was going to mention, but now I've already forgotten about it. Oh, the drag coefficient. So the Aerostar famously has a 0.37 drag coefficient, which was better than, I believe, the Fox Body Mustang and the Lincoln Mark 7. There was the two like sort of sports cars of the time that Ford was rolling out. Let's see if we can find a 1991 Miata. You know, long episode here today, but I hope you enjoy it. I just really like this one, and I like doing this comparative analysis. Let's see if we can find drag coefficient. Okay. 0.36. The stock Miata simulation CFD run had a calculated coefficient of drag of 0.36. So that's just the first number we're looking at. We're not, NA drag coefficient as high as 0.38 on the NA. Now it says 0.22 because I just changed it. That's how reliable Wikipedia is. Okay, so, all right. It seems like we're around 0.36, 0.38. You know, slice it in the middle, you get 0.37, which is the exact same drag coefficient as the 1989 Ford Aerostar, which also has a manual transmission, is also rear-wheel drive, and has just a slightly lower power-to-weight ratio, and yet is so much more versatile in the everyday world. So I didn't mean to go down this rabbit hole, but here we are. And with the looks and, you know, the classic provenance, over 2 million made. Again, you know, what more do I have to say to, you know, to rest my case that the Ford Aerostar is just sort of the greatest vehicle of all time. At least that's how I feel. So, thank you for watching this, what will probably be a Friday episode of Year of the Aerostar, number 71. Really happy. We're so close to 500 subscribers. You know, that number is meaningful to me. However, another anecdote real quick. On the same podcast with Matt Fair and Doug DeMuro, they were talking about Harry's Garage, one of Doug's favorite YouTubers. I also love Harry's Garage. And they were laughing about how Harry's just this sort of like independent, wealthy farmer who, he doesn't really care if anyone watches his videos. He's not in it to try to, you know, trick the algorithm into sending his videos out to everybody. And I had to chuckle because in a way that's exactly how I feel. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm so appreciative for every comment and every subscription, and I love interacting with you all on this channel. However, I feel like I am making content that is not trying to you know, become viral. I'm just trying to make content that is very near and dear to my heart. And so that gave me a little boost of energy and a little boost of confidence. Be like, yeah, like me and Harry's Garage, we're basically the same thing. So, Janky do thank you to you all for tuning in and watching. And this has been Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. We'll have another one for you very soon. And until then, Janky do thank you.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.